Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Jen, and we're doing a common health concerns episode today on wisdom teeth.
Yes, we are. So Elizabeth has given us quite a few options that we will be discussing. So thanks, Elizabeth. She's been a long-time patient and is amazing. So one of them is wisdom teeth. And take them out or leave them. That was her question. And so this is not as straightforward as some of the other stuff. So I did not get the genetic lotto, ticket when I married my husband with his British teeth. So one of our sons, his wisdom teeth did not come in, and they were actually sideways, and the occlusal end, the part that you bite on, was actually pushing against the roots of the other ones.
That's what my four, that's exactly, theirs came in laying down. Yeah.
So they are doing more things now than they were years ago. And so they're actually, if they catch it early enough, they're actually starting to anchor them and pull them back up. So yeah, there's ways that a lot of these dentists, especially the biodentists, are able to kind of manage some of this stuff and refer you to, surgeons and stuff like that can potentially help with that. So that is an option for some people. Other people, yes, they need to be taken out. Their jaw's so small, I remember when I was a kid, they didn't do braces before high school, and now they're sticking kids in braces and doing jaw expanders at like 7 years old. So,
I got my braces when I was 12.
Yeah, there's a lot though that goes on with it. So it just depends on how crowded everything is, how are they behaving. Some people don't need to take them out, so it's not a one size fits all for sure. I'm always of the mindset, if you can keep whatever body parts you have intact, keep it. Now, if it becomes an issue, then at that point you can address it, or if you're having issues already, obviously manage that before it becomes a major issue. So one of the things, I'm just going to kind of go over some of the dangers of having those wisdom teeth removed, one of which is dry socket. So it's basically where air gets exposing the nerves, and a lot of times you'll get blood clots that will help hold and fill those holes in where the teeth were, and then as it heals, those blood clots come out. So that's why I don't want you to swish and wash and dislodge those blood clots, because they're actually very protective. Dentists will do sutures after they take out the wisdom teeth, and others will not. So I personally have found that without the sutures, it was 10 times easier than doing the sutures. And everyone talks about how bad the dry socket is, but like I said, if you let the blood clots stay there and don't swish them out, you're generally fine. I had the hardest time with the sutures. So that was some of the worst pain I've ever had. So that can be an issue, but it's short-lived and it resolves itself. Couple of the things that don't resolve themselves anytime you have surgery in your mouth, period, is you can have nerve damage. So you can end up with numbness in the chin and the lips, the tongue, stuff like that doesn't necessarily go away. Can it regenerate? It could, but that definitely is a possibility. Sinus issues is another one, especially obviously in the upper jaw. Those roots go up and get really close, if not infiltrate into the sinuses. So it can create a sinus issue, especially if that bone doesn't grow back like it should, or if you already have infections in the sinuses that tend to be like a long-term chronic issue, then that can also become a major issue. And last but not least, TMJ damage. So those teeth are way back there. And so a lot of times those get wrenched open, especially when you're completely knocked out. You have no idea what's going on and how hard they're yanking and pushing and trying to get back there and get their hands into your mouth. I adjust so many TMJs after dental visits, it's not even funny. But it makes a huge difference. It's instant relief and everything calms down. The popping goes away. The longer it's there, the harder it is to get rid of it, really. The popping, the grinding, the pain. So to nip it in the bud immediately is going to be really, really, really helpful. My son had his wisdom teeth removed. We had some other extenuating circumstances too. And his TMJ was literally dislocated and he wouldn't let me touch him. He was in so much pain. I kept saying, listen, if you just let me get to you, I can pop it back into place. You'll be fine. And he just kept holding his jaw for 2 weeks. He was miserable. And he finally let me adjust it. And it was like night and day. So, doing that can be really helpful too if you have any pain. Those are some of the things that could go wrong, but at the end of the day, the overcrowding, you could get pain in your TMJ from those molars. So there is no absolute when it comes to this. It really has to do with your genetics and your structure. Now, for a lot of people, they don't know that there is a meridian tooth chart. And Amy, we're going to attach that below in the notes so that people can really take a look at that. But it basically is going to show that with the upper molars, they call them retromolars or wisdom teeth, there is, for every tooth, they have an organ, they have a joint association, so it can be impactful. So if you're having the same issue with all of the teeth in the same location on upper and bottom, you're going to be able to see that you're probably having the same issue with the organs, which people don't really realize. So with the upper molars, the upper retromolars or wisdom teeth, it's going to impact on the right side, the shoulder, the elbow, the hand, SI joints, foot, and toes. Okay, on the left side, it's the left shoulder, elbow, hand, SI joint, foot, and toes. Now, the endocrine organ that both those teeth impact are the anterior pituitary. The organs are the right heart, the right duodenum, which is part of the small intestines, and the terminal ileum, which is the end of the small intestines. Same thing on the left side, left portion of the heart, left side of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, actually. Now, if we go down to the lower teeth, the retromolars or wisdom teeth, that is going to impact same thing. So if you're looking at incisors, stuff like that, you're going to see that it deals with right kidney, left kidney, bladder, urethra, prostate, rectum, and anus. So when you look at this chart, I think people are going to find it really, really interesting that you've had a tooth pulled and the other 3 teeth are having the same issue in the same position, and you'll see that there's an organ association. You might find that you're having issues with that same organ because your body, you're completely all connected. So the teeth are very, very, very important to take care of because it does, have an organ and joint association. So having those pulled, that's entirely up to, the person, the parent, whoever's deciding to do that. And a lot of people want to get ahead of the problem, and I get that. But with this situation, you're really going to need to take it tooth by tooth, case by case, person by person.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in my case, 3 of them were impacted, coming in sideways, and the 4th one actually was upright the way that it should be. And they had to pull all of them. I was 20 at the time. I didn't get dry socket, but I remember the dentist office called our house every day for a week to check on me. And after like the 5th, 6th day, my mom's like, wow, is this normal to call and keep checking in? You guys are so diligent, And then they said, oh, well, no, it's not normal, but we had to remove a fair amount of your daughter's jaw to get her teeth out. And so we just want to make sure she's okay.
Oh my gosh.
So I've always thought about that. I'm always like, is there like long-reaching effects from what happened when I was 20? How much of my jawbone is down there? I don't know. But I remember that my mom was so upset. She hung on the phone up and she's like, oh my God, I had no idea,
Maybe you could have told me, right?
Yeah. And I did need to get my neck adjusted too. My neck was way out of whack because they had to do so much thrashing around of my head to get my teeth out. So I would suggest getting an adjustment on your neck. If you get your wisdom teeth out, stuff's going to be out. It just is.
Well, yeah, but that TMJ and the occipital area and the atlas are all in that one small little area. So it definitely makes a huge difference. Yeah. The one thing that we didn't really touch on, but is something that's going to be very impactful too. I mean, when I had my wisdom teeth removed, the first one, because I paid for myself. So I think I was 18 and I could only afford to have one pulled. So I had it pulled. and it was under local anesthetic, and I was out of the office in 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was, okay? So I had, I'm sure, some Novocaine or whatever it was at the time. My husband had nitrous oxide done when he had his. He was like, yeah, it was great. I was listening to my Walkman, and that ages him at all. And, you know, and he was like, and before I knew it, it was completely done. And I was like, holy cow. So now, though, what they're doing is they're doing a cocktail of pharmaceuticals. One is propofol, which is pretty
Michael
intense.
Jackson drug.
That's right. It's what killed Michael Jackson. But they're also doing fentanyl, and they're doing ketamine. And there's some other drugs that they're using, too, that are benzos and stuff like that. So that's why these kids are coming out of this, and all these funny videos are popping up about, like, they're talking and saying, my tongue's removed and stuff, because it's jacking with their brain so much. So that was the one thing that we discussed with the oral surgeon. Like, I don't want them having any fentanyl, and he agreed to it. And then after all was said and done, he's like, well, I had to give them some of it. And I was sitting in the waiting room, and he could have come and talked to me. And then they were like, oh, give us a review. And I'm like, pretty sure you don't want to see the review I'm about to give you. Not to mention that my son's jaw was dislocated, and they bled like stuck pigs all the way home. And we drove to Nashville to have this done. So we were following a biodentist who told us to go to this guy. We got there. They told us how much it was going to be. It was another $2,000 after we got to the office, more than it was supposed to be.
Oh, God.
Before we even started. They shunted us out the back door, side door, like stuff. It was not a great experience. We had two of our boys done at the same time. But yeah, I was beyond livid, and I was sitting there the entire time. If he thought he needed to do that, he'd already agreed to it, and he changed his mind and said, well, I had to do it. So I don't think he had any intentions to do it at all. So those are things. There are people who do die from that anesthetic with having their wisdom teeth removed. Anytime you go into surgery, it's not just like, oh, I'm having them removed. It's a major surgery, and you're using some major cocktails of major pharmaceuticals. So that's also something to pay attention to.
Yeah. Oh.
And there's also, actually, I just thought of this. The nitrous oxide, if you have MTHFR, nitrous oxide can dangerously inactivate B12. So this is a critical cofactor for people who have the MTHFR gene mutation. So it can cause neurological damage, demyelination, which means it takes the nerves and basically takes the fat off of it and can cause damage and breakdown of the nerves. It increases homocysteine levels, which can lead to increased cardiovascular issues and cardiac issues as well. So nitric oxide should always be discussed or not given to people, especially if you have an MTHFR gene mutation, especially if you have a double copy. And you should also take extra supplementation for the active form of B12 and folate. So no folic acid, methylated folate or folinic acid, as well as some sort of methyl B12, hydroxy B12, and or adenosyl B12, but absolutely no cyanocobalamin, okay? So be very, very, very careful, because it can actually do irreparable damage, not just deplete the B12, depending on your genetics. So be very careful with that, because the risk of dangerously high homocysteine after nitrous oxide exposure is an issue. If you have a heterozygous genetic mutation, so you have one from mom and not one from dad, or vice versa, or if you have a double copy, it's even worse. So, and that may be why we have people who actually end up dying from the cocktails that they give them, and it may not just be the anesthesia, but it could be the combination of the nitric oxide. So once again, you got to advocate for yourself. Not everybody knows everything. And if you have that issue, be very aware, and maybe stay in the room with your kid, because that was something they didn't want me to do, and I was an idiot and should have stayed there. So
I have two questions that I feel like our viewers/listeners are going to want to know. One, given what you just said about nitrous oxide, what is the safe option for the anesthesia portion that people could request of?
Nothing. No, I don't know. So don't do it.
Write on a shoe.
No, I know exactly. So, what do they give them? A leather strap to hold on to, and
Belt.
give them some whiskey?
Leather belt.
Some whiskey.
Whiskey.
I don't know. It works pretty much everything else, and it'll help get rid of any infection. You know, it's hard to say, because everybody reacts differently to different anesthetics, and the biggest issue is the combination, right?
Yeah.
So you can have one pharmaceutical, and that's what they would give us. They would give us one thing back in the day, and now
Yeah.
they're a cocktail of 3 or 4 things plus the nitrous oxide. So, you're now not sure what it is that's creating the biggest issue. And then genetically, like we just talked about, you have a genetic predisposition to certain things that could cause that to go dangerously low and not have a good outcome.
Yeah, so you really have to do your homework there too to make sure you get what's right for you, essentially. Like I said, I was 20 when I got mine out. Some kids are younger and people are younger. They might be having this conversation, with the dentist and being like, okay, wisdom teeth are coming in. What do we do? So I think it's a timely topic for a lot of parents. But my second question, my last question, also is the organs that are tied to those wisdom teeth, just for our worrywart viewers, because there will be some out there. What is the impact to, like, is it going to be detrimental to those organs or those parts of the body if your wisdom teeth are taken out?
Well, I mean, long term, we don't know, right? And is it one wisdom tooth or is it all? So if you have all your wisdom teeth removed and you already have, let's say, a genetic predisposition to having rotator cuff tears, because there are genes associated with that, which is why I do genetic testing all the time on my patients. Yeah. Saliva testing, but it's your owner's manual to your body. So if we can do that, then we have a better idea of, hey, you already have a predisposition to a rotator cuff tear or whatever it is, arthritis, osteoarthritis, and then you're doing this. But also, I mean, it's not so much even that, it's also looking at the organ association with it, which is the anterior pituitary, which is responsible for hormone production. So you've got the hypothalamus, which is the master gland. I know they call the pituitary the master gland, but it's really not. The hypothalamus tells the pituitary what to do. The pituitary basically, this is simplified obviously, tells all the other organs what they're supposed to do. So it's hard to say because everybody's body manages things differently. Look at your genetics, make sure you know what your MTHFR status is, and pay attention to the meridian tooth chart that we're going to attach as well. So all of those things you can take into consideration, decide what's best for you, and find a doctor that's going to be supportive.
I just love that there is a tooth chart to share with people, because the Meridian Chinese Body Clock episode we did, which if you haven't watched that, go back and look at it. It got a ton of attention, like lots of views. So if you haven't seen it, go back and look at it and do what we said. Screenshot it, keep it on your phone. It's really helpful to have as a tool. But this is that, but for your mouth. So I love that we're going to be able to share that with our viewers. So thank you, Dr. Jen.
Of course.
And thank you for another informative episode. Thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't joined our school community before, I'll put the link in the show notes below. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye. That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.